Sleepy time. All right. Hello, good morning. A little late, but better than nothing, right? Not that late in the grand scheme of things, right? All things considered, we moved with a swiftness. Yes. And someone is falling asleep as we speak, I hope. You need to be moved up a little, don't you? Don't you? Yeah. Let me move you up a little. You can lay your head down, honey. Oh. Hi, Danny. Hey, Ray. Hey, Naisa. Hey, Amanda. Yes, temp home. Yeah. We are home temporarily for 1, possibly 2 days. Not permanently, but, you know, it's better than nothing, right? No fingies in the rings. No fingies in the rings. Yeah. There we go. All tightened up. All tightened up. Good morning. So we're here for a little bit, and you know, it caused us to be late getting here, but it was worth it, I think, to be home for a short time. I think I will have to go back over there Thursday or Friday, but yes, exactly like Amanda said, take what we can get. Good morning, Susan. How are you? Susan, I have to tell you, while we were at my aunt's house, we used so many of your bibs. So many. Because I didn't want to use their laundry as much as we do our laundry here, and so I was just using all of them because we're going through like 3 a day right now. We're home on day. Yeah, it's only temporary, but I mean, listen, I'm going to take what I can get, right? I'm going to take what I can get. They are well used already. You know what the funny thing about it was, Susan? You had some that are identical to some of the ones we have, and so when I pulled it out, I was like, because I packed all of them, then there were 2 that were, I was like, how did I get 2 of these? And then I remembered that you had sent us them. I was like, oh, she must have sent us the exact same ones we already had, because I was like, I didn't know we owned 2 of these. Temporary because there's construction going on in our home, unfortunately. It's on pause right now, so we can be here while it's not happening, and then we have to leave again when they resume. Will you be doing any slime lives? I sure hope so, but right now, I'll show you guys, the slime room is quartered off. Like, I technically can't get in there right now. I did see the Taylor Swift announcement. How amazing was that, you guys? 12/12, right? Oh dear, hold on, everything's toppling over here. Give me 1 second, friends. Give me 1 second. Ouch, that's very hot. Ouchity, ouch, ouch, ouch. Ouchity, ouch, ouch, ouch. I sent you a DM about my slimes. I haven't gotten them in. Okay, you didn't even get the 1? Jeez, I thought I messed up and sent only 1. If I sent only 0, that's even worse. Jeez, Louise, Susan. Okay, we will get it figured out, obviously. Coffee with a side of baby toes, that's right. Baby toes. The best toes, am I right? Baby toes are the best toes. I'm not a foot person, but when it's a baby foot, I'm more inclined to be interested. When it's a baby foot. Coffee with a side of baby toes. I've been watching her recordings on YouTube to get your slime, but that's funny. That's really funny. Yeah, I mean, look, I'm hoping that while I'm here, I'll get to do something, anything. But I'll show you guys in a second when we get up that it's all like blocked off. But today, maybe they'll, I know, Nikki, just shortly. We were just talking about that, how long, we don't know how long we'll be here, but, you know, we're gonna hope for the best. We're gonna hope for the best. I hope until Friday, that's my dearest hope. Secret Husband thinks it's only going to be until Thursday, but maybe I'll get till Friday. I know. Well, here's the thing. On one hand, Thursday would be better because it would mean it's all over sooner. But on the other hand, Friday would be better because it means I can get more work done. So it's like, I don't know, man. I just don't know. Let's just see what we get for next week. I'd also rather just be over and done with it. That would be fantastical. I'd love to be home for the weekend. That would be ideal. She is so settled and comfy. Does it affect her room? So, yeah, it's really loud when it's going on, and that's how it affects her space. It doesn't affect her space in so much as there's any construction going on in there. It's just so loud and also so dusty, you know? No, sorry, Sophia, we don't do that. So yeah, I don't know. I just don't know what we're gonna do, but someone is falling asleep. Slowly but surely, she's resting. It's nice and cool here. She's all cozied up. All cozied. And we're gonna read. You know what I mean? We're gonna read, just like we always do. I know, Amy. Please, you're preaching to the choir with that one. It blows my mind every day. It's best to keep her what's going. Correct. That's correct. Exactly. Anytime the construction's going on, we won't have her around it for obvious reasons. But you know, hey Jen. But you know, it is what it is, right? Home coffee. Not that the other coffee was bad at all. It wasn't. I mean, you know. It's just water, sweetheart. It's just water. Okay. Happy August 12th to all who celebrate. Yes, happy Swift Day to all who celebrate. What?
Orange.
That's right. Yes, even Secret Husband knows. That's right. It's just, yeah, exactly. We were getting a new...
Wait, what do I know?
That the new album was represented by the color orange.
Yes, I did know that.
Yeah. Do you want to grab your coffee? I moved the camera other way so you could grab it.
Pretty good, right?
That was great. Are you guys...
Why do you have an orange sitting right there?
Why do we think he has an orange sitting right there? I don't know. I hadn't put that together. Nikki, you're not dumb at all. It's just Taylor Swift announced a new album. So that is what it is. It is not for everyone, but it is for the Taylor Swift fans of the world.
Now, do you think it's problematic that she chose orange when we have an orange dictator right now?
Ooh, that's an excellent question. A little bit I do. A little bit I do think that's a problem. Yeah, a little bit I do. Or are we taking back orange? That's what I was going to say, Jen. Are we reclaiming orange? Because orange was, prior to this dictator, one of my favorite colors, and I feel like it was defiled. Yeah. Me too, Nikki. Me too. Like way back in the day. Yeah, we're taking it back. Oh, I didn't even think of that, Liz. Liz knows all the things. Oh, sweetheart. She knows all the things that we don't know. Yes, very much so, Ray. I can't say that on here, obviously, but I know what you're typing. You want to go sleepies? Sleepy time, la 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 la. Sleepy time. I do love orange. Orange is a great color. I think it's been defiled recently. Yes, he drove us home, Nikki. He drove us home. Actually, did you sleep well again last night, honey?
I didn't wake up, but it was definitely, it was a lighter sleep where I was sort of up. And
So it wasn't the magic Erewhon mushrooms?
No, I actually read about those and I might have to stop taking them.
Why?
They have some ingredient that might not be very good for you.
Uh-oh, what is it?
It was some word that I forget now.
Some what?
I don't know, some, I can't remember the word. or just some sort of sugar substitute that can cause problems with like clotting and stuff.
Oh, geez. Okay, good to know.
And so
I think I actually look great in orange, believe it or
I
not.
think I was just very, very tired.
I think you were, yeah. Like this girl right now.
Or the day before, brother.
That's what I mean. Yeah. I do. I think I look good in orange, actually.
Hey, you look great in every color, but
No, thank you. But I mean, genuinely, I think my skin color looks good with orange because I have a yellow undertone. Hey, Isabella. So,
I don't look good in red, and I have pink undertone.
I don't think you look bad in red, but you're right. Cool tones do look better on you. Yes. Yes, the mustard yellow. Yes, I agree. Mustard yellow is another one, Nikki. Yes. Orange and green are very hard colors to wear for most people. Yes, that's true. They are. But I find that I actually am one of the few people who can pull off orange. Not green, but orange. My husband, however, looks great in green because of his tones. He is a redhead with blue eyes and very pale skin, and he looks great in green. Like, it's real good. Like, he puts on green and I'm like, oh, okay, that's where you're from. You were meant for this. You know, he is translucent. It's true. You're right. I misspoke. I said he was pale. What I meant was translucent. Yes, all leprechauns look good in green. It's true. Yes.
Racism.
Racism against the red undertones and we look good. Yeah, you do. You look good in green. Right, Susan? No, I mean, it's the truth. People from the islands of the UK look great in green. I don't know. It is what it is. I'm all for the royal tones. You do look good in those, Amanda. That does go well with you. Yes, even leprechauns without collarbones. I missed it, Liz. I totally missed it. You'll have to go back and screenshot it. I was going to say the British Isles. Yes, it is the British Isles. I said UK by accident, but I meant British Isles, yeah. You are also from Germany, yes. I like green too. Green is a great color. He is translucent. It's true. It's true. Okay, so for anyone who is just joining, we are on. Oh, can we get a babe? Can you mark her sleep? She fell asleep like a minute ago.
I got it.
Thank you. Okay, so we're on book 3, which is like segment 3 of the Josh Gad memoir. We've been loving it so far. That's a strange statement, Liz. If you haven't listened to the other chapters, you can still listen today because it's a memoir, so it's not like a storyline that you're missing a part of, and most people know who Josh Gad is and at least know something of his career. That being said, I hope you do go back and listen to the rest of it because it's good. It's a great book. And we are 65% in for those who are keeping track for their Goodreads and whatever like that. So here we go. And we're going to start with one of his asides. It is a Gadism. I know. She was like, please. Well, I think also, Nikki, she's in her home. And so she's like, I'm home. I can sleep like normal, you know? She saw her house and she was like, this is great. I live here. Literally. All right. Gadism. As parents of girls, we are defined not by the choices we make and the milestones we mark or the paths we forge on their behalf. We who are is ultimately decided by whether or not our kids think we're slightly better than a piece of dog shit baking on a sun-drenched sidewalk, and hopefully not much worse than a cringy embarrassment to their friends or the social media community writ large. Knowing Taylor Swift songs lists and having a basic comprehension of TikTok dance trends will be a good start on your path to acceptance. Well, great news for me. I'm the mom of a girl and I can do all those things. She's probably still going to find me embarrassing. But I, as far as Josh's criteria is concerned, I've won. Oh. Wonderful. I know what book I'm getting my older brother. It's so funny, Susan. Also, I mean, if your older brother likes memoirs, it's a genuinely good one, and he's a comedian, so like I was reading it in front of my aunt and uncle, and they were both laughing, and they have very different interests, so you know it's pretty whatever. Check with my kids all the time, like, am I embarrassing you yet? Yeah, right? Am I embarrassing you yet? Am I embarrassing you yet? All right, so we're reading chapter 8. It's called Just Kidding. Dada! The first time my daughter Ava said that word, it all made sense. Life, I mean. I suddenly understood the meaning of it. It's all fun and great, partying, learning, working, earning, but none of it comes close to the euphoria and the sense of responsibility that comes with an infant or a toddler looking into your eyes and making a claim to you as their caretaker. Not yet, Bridget, I don't think so. It's a feeling of weightlessness, of gratitude, of love. Their undying trust that you will protect and nurture them gives you, in return, a sense of purpose and clarity. And as they look at you with their big, helpless eyes and say the word Dada, you feel a desperate need to fulfill that promise of the title and all that comes with it. Just 2 syllables said in the tiniest of munchkin voices, and I would literally cross oceans and deserts for them. Until one day, in the blink of an eye, Dada becomes, oh my God, shut up. Why are you so annoying and embarrassing? I hate you. Which, for whatever reason, doesn't quite have the same ring to it. Alas, dear reader, this is the saga of fatherhood. I always wanted to be a dad. I think a big part of it was the absence of a real father figure for most of my childhood until, that is, for my stepdad Stan, who came into my life, and I went from having a father who was never really there for me to eventually having a male presence that would talk me through things and help guide me through social challenges and situations, and simply would show me what normal dad-son activities should look like, from fishing to going to baseball games. I wanted to have a second chance at building such a relationship from the beginning, though. I know, right, Sloth? We'd be on this chapter until the day you go back. I know, right? Hilarious. Ava was born in December 2010, a month before I had to leave for New York City to start rehearsals for the Book of Mormon. The first 2 days of her life, I was terrified that I was going to fail. I was shown by a nurse how to swaddle her like a burrito, and when it was my turn to do it, I had her looking like an open-faced Reuben sandwich with every one of her tiny body parts dangling out of the blanket like pieces of pastrami. Washing her delicate little head in the sink was equally challenging, with me being terrified of letting her slip out of my hands or getting soap in her eyes, thus blinding her for the duration of her life. The first time I had to put her in the car seat to take her home from the hospital, we all nearly died because I kept looking back every 5 seconds to make sure that she was still breathing. In fact, for most of the first year of her life, I was looking for signs of sudden infant death syndrome, since I had read one parenting book that made it sound like it was as frequent as newborns as the common cold in the rest of us. I would turn to my wife every few minutes and say, "Are we sure her chest is moving? Can you feel her?" If God forbid she had the sniffles or something far more catastrophic, a low-grade fever, I was convinced that we were going to have to do her final rites, and somehow transferred all of my self-focused hypochondria onto her and her well-being. Yeah, something about it feels like a Dear Rita, this is what you're up for. When I wasn't worried about the 10,000 ways that she could die, I was doing every form of bonding imaginable. We would do skin to skin, in which I would put her small body on my chest and let her sleep, something I literally cry with joy thinking back on. And I would sing to her, usually a mix of sleepy time songs and 80s love ballads, and I would walk around the neighborhood with her in her stroller, and most frequently, I would simply stare endlessly at her, basking in the miracle of her being a part of me, and yet somehow something so much greater. That's extremely sweet. This is them. It's very sweet. I love his description. The day I had to leave home to move to New York was debilitating. I knew that I wouldn't see her or my wife for 2 months, since Ava wasn't supposed to travel until month 3. Every day I would rush home from rehearsal and Skype or call, asking my wife to put her on, which in hindsight didn't make much sense. "Here, babe, your dad's on the phone. Do some of those sounds that you involuntarily make." Nevertheless, the ritual was the only thing that got me through those lonely, sad winter months. And when they finally were able to come to see me, it was such a relief. We lived in an 800 square foot apartment with a tiny mutt named Diddy, a 10-pound cutie that we rescued from a kill shelter, who 16 years later is still going strong and somehow looks like a baby sea lion. And then we also had a tuxedo cat, Miles, who terrified me at 3 a.m. every day by clawing at my face and somehow sounding like a small child in Vietnam screaming the word meow when he cried for food. And we had our newborn, a baby child that I've already described to you who never once clawed my face at 3 a.m. That's right, Liz. That's right. See? That's right. But it didn't matter because we were together as a family. Unfortunately, the challenges of putting up a new show and doing all of the press that comes with an 8-show week proved very difficult, often keeping me from time with my baby girl, even though she was technically there with me. That first year was impossibly hard on my poor wife, who essentially had to be a single parent while I was being pulled in every direction. Unfortunately, we didn't have any family in New York, and while my amazing mom and awesome mother-in-law Marissa, a strong and brilliant Italian woman whose expertise in cooking dissertations on Dante and 16th century Renaissance painters, would come in once in a while and help with the baby, it was always a comedy show with the two of them basically standing in for Abbott and Costello with a nonstop comedy of errors. We also didn't have many close friends in New York who could help out, so for the most part, Ida was frustratingly on her own in those early days. Every waking minute I wasn't working, however, I would spend it with Ava, taking her to the park, restaurants, music-related toddler programs. I would luxuriate in her gravitating to a piece of music or seemingly grasping what an instrument can do. Every milestone was a miracle. Hey, look, she's laughing. Look, she's sitting up. Look, she's pushing her torso up ever so slightly from the ground, implying that at some point in the near not-so-distant future, she might crawl. Crawling was its own stage of anxiety for me. First, she wasn't crawling soon enough by what the books were saying, and then it was taking forever for her to walk. And I legitimately turned to my wife one day and I said, what if she doesn't learn to walk until she's like 10? The first year of parenting was a series of anxiety-inducing, make-believe benchmarks that various authors and experts put into a book, making it seem like your child is slightly behind, so you may want to start over. By the time she was 1, I finally settled into relaxing and feeling a great sense of accomplishment that she had simply survived. Coincidentally, that was the same feeling I had when I was able to successfully navigate my parakeet through its first year of life when I was a child. Ava finally walked, and more importantly, she spoke. I became obsessed with spending day and night with her, course-correcting my own childhood relationship with my father. The joy of cuddling with her, teaching her, at last replaced the void that I had felt as a child, longing for the same kind of love, adoration, and time commitment from a father unwilling and or unable to give it to me. Ida and Ava eventually went back to LA in early 2012 with our incredible new nanny, Mackenzie, or the baby whisperer, as we called her. And I followed just a few months later. Part of my parenting schedule now included Parent and Me classes, which are very different in Los Angeles than everywhere else. One of the funniest and most bizarre moments at the Parent and Me class around late 2013 was running into another parent who happened to be the famed director David O. Russell. He had recently been nominated for a slew of Oscars for his brilliant film American Hustle. And when I congratulated him, he asked me what it is I do, and I told him I was an actor, and he said, "Oh, what would I have seen you in?" I always feel so awkward listing off my credits, but I felt obliged to answer, and so I told him a bunch of my work, to which he offered a blank stare and a long pause. And I finally offered, "Your child might know me from the recently released Frozen." "What's that?" he responded. "Oh, well, it's an animated film about two sisters and their undying love for each other." "Who do you play?" he continued, and at this point, I wanted to crawl into one of the small cave-themed slides on the playground and hide. A snowman, I half-heartedly responded to an Academy Award-winning director. "Do it." "Do what?" "The snowman." Having never before been asked to suddenly break into the voice of an animated snowman by a renowned filmmaker on a children's playground, I wasn't really sure how to respond. If I said no, I would never reasonably be in David O. Russell's movies. And if I said yes and immediately jumped into my snowman voice, I would reasonably never be in a David O. Russell movie. With my choices being evenly shitty, I opted to go for broke. "Hi, I'm Olaf, and I like warm hugs." There was a pause. Neither of us quite knew what was coming next, after one of two grown men outside of a preschool had just broken into a snowman voice. He cocked his head and he studied me like a coach might study a basketball player who has just used a baseball bat to hit a golf ball during the 7th game of the NBA Finals. "Very interesting," he finally said, and walked away, leaving me alone with my thoughts, which ranged from, am I on ketamine? Or is there a subset of the world that has similar David O. Russell stories? Or maybe, do we live in a simulation? I finally caught up with my wife inside. My daughter was, of course, playing with David O. Russell's child. As of this publication, I have not yet been in a David O. Russell film. That's what it is. By the time Ava was close to 3 years old, we decided that we wanted to have a second child. Having grown up with 2 siblings, I had always imagined 3 in total, but as my wife explained to me, we were leasing her uterus, so it would be 2 children. Isabella, was born in early 2014. Oh. Okay. It was close, though. It was close. You know it's close. Very close. Our family was now complete. Whereas Ava was quiet, thoughtful, introspective, and the sweetest bunny you've ever seen, Izzy came out of my wife channeling Gilda Radner. Her energy, even as a baby, was chaotic, hilarious, and off the charts bonkers. I could not believe 2 human beings were made from the same genetic recipe and could come out so completely different. Ava loved her binky, Izzy hated hers. Ava loved to be swaddled, Izzy hated it. Ava would fall asleep in 10 minutes. Izzy would literally twerk herself to sleep over the course of an hour. They were like DeVito and Schwarzenegger in twins. Another thing I had always pictured was being a dad to boys. Having only known growing up with brothers, it was completely a new experience to be surrounded by nothing but estrogen. When they were still little and not battling hormones, the relationship between dads and daughters had been described to me by many fathers as being one of the most profound and beautiful relationships you could ever imagine. But man, do not get into it until you get it. The daddy's little princess phenomenon, that's a real thing, in which the father of girls is given a full pass while the mother is given what's left over. I don't excuse it, I don't understand it, and I don't condone it, even though I do selfishly love it. Little girls, not always, but often, tend to give their dads nothing but love while showering their moms with whatever the atmosphere of hell is made from. To be fair, this is a very general statement, so please forgive me, as it only reflects my own experiences, and I am in no way meant to sound heteronormative. It is simply to say that in my household, there is an undeniable bias. Having said that, my wife, who was always rightfully pissed by the disparity, is now equally joyful that I get to bask in the shitstorm that is early female teenage years. Okay. Now, please let me state with conviction that my wife is 10 times the mother and father that I am. She literally keeps our children alive, thriving, and fed while I do funny noises, show them movies, and fart out loud to make them laugh. If she's president, I am a clown brought into the White House once a year for the sick kids. That's truly our dynamic. I cannot do any of the things that my wife does. She's miraculous, bouncing them from one activity to another, juggling their academic needs with their extracurricular needs, and making sure that they have the resources required to become exceptionally strong and strong-minded young ladies. If they were solely left in my care, they would undoubtedly be selling bagels out of a bicycle basket, which, for the record, they would probably kill at. It's a balance. Katie bit my face off in the car, dropped it. Yeah, it's a balance. That's right, Ray. Yes. That's not to say I'm not a present or fully engaged parent. It's simply to say that I'm useless next to my wife. So I truly feel terrible every time one of my kids shows bias, even though deep down inside I do feel giddy. To be clear, the only reason they sometimes favor me is because the word no doesn't come as easily to me. I am what you call a good cop, if there were cops that were allowed... If there were cops who allowed inmates to go on month-long vacations out of the country while incarcerated. About the most discipline I show my kids is forcing them to watch Jeopardy with me instead of the kissing booth. My wife, on the other hand, is amazing at keeping the home from becoming an insane asylum, specifically with regards to their exposure to screens and social media apps. The two of us agreed early on that we would not allow them to engage in social media until they were old enough to comprehend and deal with the incredibly complex factors that come with having such access. And while I tend to cave, my wife puts the kibosh on it, even if the children tend to respond to this with something that resembles the third act of a Rocky film. Here are the children. As I stated earlier, now that my children have gone from very little girls to suddenly now young women, the introduction of hormones has certainly tempered their former ever-present enthusiasm for me. Excited shouting has morphed into unspecified aggression, grunting, yeah, that's funny, is now... that's funny is now more commonly replaced with, that is so dumb, Dad, and why can't you be home tonight? Why can't you be... Okay, I'm doing this wrong. Dude, I know some adults that aren't capable of dealing with that. Yeah, agreed, right. Let's try that again. They would say, that's so funny, and that's now more commonly replaced with, that's so dumb, Dad. And why can't you be home tonight? Has turned into, do you have to be here tonight? I will say that I take sadistic pleasure in embarrassing them in front of their friends, but it's only because they constantly make a point of telling me how I embarrass them in front of their friends. I recently attended a bat mitzvah for one of my daughter's classmates, and when I approached the dance floor to start dancing with her, she took off at lightning speed, which made me commit to the bit even more, tearing up the floor with my wife to the point that her friends were cheering us on as my daughter looked on through a gaze of shame and awe. As I now enter this new phase of my daughter's childhood development called puberty, there are endless new challenges, verbal landmines, and trigger warning situations that I must heroically navigate while simply trying to survive the emotional shrapnel. I wouldn't trade it for the world, however. In a life of incredible milestones and achievements, my daughters are perhaps the greatest achievement of all. There is so much we teach children, but what often isn't stated is how much children teach us. My kids, even when they were toddlers, would teach me something about the world or myself on a daily basis. I'll never forget Ava, at the age of 4, crying one day at the dinner table. It was such a deep and heart-wrenching sob that just came out of nowhere. And as she put her little spoon down to catch her breath, I asked her what was wrong. And she looked at me and she said, "I don't want to grow up." And our nanny at the time, Sarah, immediately began guiding the conversation, helping to get deeper into what she meant, asking her why she didn't want to be a grown-up. And through snot, tears, and a squeaky voice, she said, "Because I'll never get to be a kid again." Every time I watch a video of this moment, which we miraculously recorded, I cry. I cry not only because of the pain of the realization in that moment that none of us can forever stay a child, but also because of the realization that these days, my baby is no longer a baby, and fast becoming the grown-up that she so desperately feared becoming, and then the one that I never imagined she would so quickly become. I thought, forever, I'd be a child. Similarly, I fell into the same trap of believing that my kids would forever be a child, but one day you wake up and you realize that they're becoming your height. They're going from saying Dada to Dad. Ultimately, you realize that no matter how hard you try, there's nothing that you can do to stop the inevitability of them one day taking all of the work that you've put into them, the thousands of mistakes that you've made along the way, and becoming an adult in their own right that will one day, presumably, take care of you. Seriously, Liz. I mean, tell me about it. Hey, Jenna. My younger daughter, Isabella, still believes in Santa, elves, and magic, and I'm so scared of the moment that she learns that none of it is real, not even because she'll stop believing it, but because I, as her father, will stop believing it on her behalf. As hard as we try to shield our children from reality, however, sometimes there simply is no shield big enough to protect them from the unexpected twists and turns of a tragic life. On June 24th, 2022, I received an earth-shattering call from my wife. Her nephew, Marco, had died in his sleep at the age of 20. Marco was an honor student at the University of Miami, preparing to pursue international law after graduating with an eye on Harvard Law. Marco was quite simply one of the most brilliant young men I had ever met. His fierce advocacy for those without a voice was inspiring and invigorating. He was so full of life that there was no way to imagine ever being lifeless. And yet that's precisely what happened. His sudden death was not only catastrophic for his parents, Sadie and Mimi, whose only child was now tragically gone, but for the rest of us, his relatives, also for the young 2 cousins he left behind. And then they were aged 8 and 11. They'd never had a reason to question mortality at this point. In what was one of the hardest days of my life, we sat them down and explained as best we could that their cousin, the only one of only 3 that they had, was now gone. My younger daughter screamed and cried until she fell asleep from exhaustion. My older daughter let her tears openly flow from her face and asked for privacy. She then went into her room, closed the door, and wrote a letter to her beloved Marco, and they both grieved in their own unique ways. Nothing my wife or I did could blunt or take away the pain that they felt, but we remained steadfast by their side to hold them, to love them, and to answer their questions as best as we could, to provide them with a space to grieve and heal. Watching them work through this process was and still is the hardest thing I've had to face as a parent. It wasn't even guiding them through the turbulence of their loss that was the scariest part of the process. It was the fear as to whether or not we had done enough as parents prior to this loss to give them the resources that they needed in order to guide themselves through that pain. I sobbed watching them both experience grief in their own ways, not only because I was so devastated for and alongside them, but also because I was so profoundly proud that they were processing their anguish in their own time and in their own ways. My daughters have and continue to impress me on a daily basis, but the way that they worked through this unthinkable incident makes me proud to be their father. In many ways, I think they were able to find their own peace with it far faster than my wife and I did, who, now 2 years on, are still having a hard time comprehending Marco's absence from our life. 14 years in, and all I know for certain is that being a dad is simultaneously both the greatest gift in the world and the greatest challenge. Every choice you make, in turn, shapes every aspect of who they will eventually become. No matter how big or small, every ripple leads to a wave. From types of movies they watch, to kinds of musical artists they listen to the way that they carry themselves in times of difficulty, and the way they show modesty in times of success. From prepping them for camp to sheltering them in place from viruses, the work of a parent, and in my case, a dad, is all-consuming and often terrifying. Now, every father has their own observations, lessons, rules of parenting. For me, there are many lessons that I wish other fathers would have shared with me before I became a dad, or even now while I continue to navigate the choppy waters that are fatherhood. Therefore, I decided that for the purposes of this book, I would share my own observations in the hopes that they may be useful on your journey. Here now is a list of some things I think about parenthood. Hope it's helpful. Number 1, just because your child tells you they want ice cream on a Tuesday night at 9 p.m. does not necessarily mean you have to give it to them. You have the option to say no. Sure, it might mean that they're going to cry, "You're a bad dad," or cry with a great effectual effort within your line of sight and vow not to love you anymore. All of those cons, however, must ultimately be weighed against the potential fallout of being Twilight sugar dealer, namely turning them into a leprechaun-sized monster who traffics in spastic jumping on beloved furniture and licking things like air and walls. Number 2, 6 is too young for John Hughes films. No, I know, this is a controversial statement, and I know a lot of readers will too find this deeply divisive, but it takes an exceptional father to answer questions about Judd Nielsen's questionable stances on companionship, or Ferris Bueller's clinical destruction of educational norms. Yes, Home Alone might seem innocent enough for your 6-year-old, but do you really want to plant the seed in a 6-year-old's head that when they are faced with armed assailants, they too would be able to whip up some DIY paint bucket Molotov cocktails and use the family's handy-dandy staple gun to assault said assailants? More importantly, do you own a staple gun? I don't, actually, own a staple gun. Number 3, love comes in all shapes and viruses. By committing to having a child, you must be willing not only to share your love and your home, but also your immune system with them. You see, while a child may not love to share their toys or anecdotes about their day, the one thing they absolutely do love to pass along are infections. Be prepared to have sounds come out of your body that you never imagined possible, and sputum that runs the gamut between every shade of yellow, green, and other colors on the spectrum. They have a really fun part. The really fun part, however, is that you will finally overcome one infection and they will eagerly be brewing up another in your upper respiratory tract. Number 4, tears for fears. Be prepared to become a full-grown hypochondriac on behalf of every sniffle, pain, fall, and medical incident that your child endures. Never in the history of self-care have I ever been so concerned as I am when this little thing makes my girl cry. Their pain is my terror. These precious commodities seem so fragile, but in reality, they are truly resilient. In fact, it takes a while to learn that it is we who are far more fragile than them. For example, when my daughter has a nosebleed, she simply puts a tissue on it, washes it off with a little water, and goes about her business, while I throw myself into a deep recess of WebMD, call our pediatrician multiple times until I get to her, research nosebleed specialist, and keep myself up all night staring at my daughter's nose, looking for further signs of something that she forgot happened even 30 minutes after it was done. Number 5, how to tackle bullying without literally tackling a bully. Ooh. Becca, Liz, and I could take a lesson in this one. When we hear about kids getting bullied, we pretty much just sit on the bully. It's a fair assumption that in the course of child rearing, you will encounter an adversarial foe who focuses unwanted attention on your child. If that happens, it's best not to do what I did when a 3rd grade boy called my child ugly and made her self-conscious about her looks, which was to publicly shame and lightly threaten him on social media platforms. Josh. I mean, same, Liz, but it might have a bigger impact when it's coming from him. But you know what? I support that, Anya. I know now, with the help of my very angry wife, that that was not the ideal way to confront an issue like an 8-year-old bullying someone. Instead, it's important to give your child the resources they need to deal with little fuckers like redacted name here, so that they can learn how to navigate those issues for themselves throughout life. And while I know that I could confidently kick the shit out of that prepubescent punk, it's apparently not within societal norms for a grown man who also happens to be a public figure that does kids' movies to threaten a mean little boy. Okay, fine. Lesson learned, so long as he doesn't go near my baby girl again. Hey, Susan. Olaf made fun of me on the internet. Number 6, do not project your own issues and insecurities on those tiny little carbon copies of you. Each of us comes with baggage, and I have a plethora of issues related to food, abandonment, and self-worth, which we have now discussed ad nauseum. As much as I try not to, I feel myself worrying about my girls encountering those same demons along the way. As a result, I will occasionally put unwanted attention and or pressure on them to steer them away from these concerns. And in so, however, I may run the risk of giving them different issues based on my own issues. Sometimes we have to trust that our children will have their own shit to deal with that can in turn pass on to their children without carrying the burden of ours as well. Number 7, the birds and the bees don't do missionary.
Whoa.
He was in the other room when he walked in. You missed a whole list of dadisms and you walked in on that one? My first encounter with intercourse was discovering the joys of sex and more joy of sex illustrated books on my parents' bedside table drawer at the age of 5. For the record, I am now 43 years old and I still don't understand how most of those positions feasibly work. I made a vow, however, to be much more open and forthcoming about sex education with my children than my parents had been with me. So one day, after hearing from my wife that my oldest, then 11, was hearing things about intimacy at school, I sat down with her and I said, I want you to know that I'm here to answer any and all questions you have about sex and your body to the best of my abilities. What transpired was the single most uncomfortable conversation between two human beings in the known world outside of Kennedy and, I'm not going to pronounce this word correctly, circa 1961. What I learned the hard way.
Gorbachev?
What?
Gorbachev? No.
No. It's got a lot more letters than that.
Really?
Yeah. And most of them are consonants. Very, very few vowels.
Kennedy and, what's the guy's name?
Khrushchev.
Oh, Khrushchev.
Kev.
I bet somebody's screaming.
KHRUSHCHEV. Anyway, what I learned the hard way was based on my daughter's facial reactions. For the record, I've never seen another face do that before or since, is that there is such a thing as oversharing. My lesson here is that when in doubt, let the skilled professionals and educational literature available on the subject do the talking. What is it? Khrushchev. Okay, sure. Another word to the wise is always make sure your bedroom door is locked before performing any of the chapters from The Joy of Sex, as you never know when your 6-year-old wearing a Hello Kitty nightgown is going to saunter up to both of you like a terrifying apparition and say, "What are you doing?" Number 8, lessons in empathy. It never occurred to me how blessed I was growing up in a household that wore its emotions on its sleeve. While it was often quite difficult to watch my mother openly sob after my father left us for his other family, I'm grateful that she didn't try to shield me or protect me from that emotional wreckage. It gave me permission to also grieve and not be ashamed to share my own confused and raw feelings. The idea of openly crying is seen by many to be weakness or a social flaw, but I would argue that it is in fact a strength and a power. If we can bestow that element of emotional intelligence into our kids, imagine how much less chaotic and cruel this world would be. Number 9. In a one-on-one match, imagine kicking the shit out of an iPhone any day of the week. Trust me, I know how easy it is to hand a crying child an iPad or plop them in front of a TV to simmer them down. But over the course of my parenting journey, one thing has become clear to me. Nothing you hand your kid can ever replace the power of what they're born with. The potential of imagination and play is greater than any app or device. I cannot imagine or stomach the thought of being born in the now digital age. When we're constantly bombarded by ones and zeros, having a screen in front of us the whole time, it's hard to remember just how much the computer chip calls to our mind and can achieve how much the computer chip called our mind can achieve and create when left to its own devices. I've been very fortunate to have a partner who from the very beginning understood that in a universe in which our children would eventually be inundated with technology, it was beyond important to place an emphasis on tactile and creative play over Minecraft and TikTok. In doing so, our kids can now just as easily keep themselves busy writing songs on the piano or cooking a feast in a mini kitchen, complete with a functional sink and fingernail-sized toaster, as they are playing on their iPads. This is no right or wrong answer, but for us, the balance has been hugely beneficial in building their confidence and creativity so that eventually they can have a stable and healthy relationship with the rabbit holes known as social media, the internet, and whatever AI has in store for us. Number 10, love and be loved. It's still relatively difficult for me to process the literal loss of almost a year and a half of normal life to a global pandemic, and yet, despite the sacrifices, the hardships, and the tedium of staying home for weeks on end, there was one shiny piece of silver lining: the time I got to spend with my daughters. It was the closest thing I'd ever experienced to the 1950s idea of a nuclear family, and it suddenly occurred to me that I no longer wanted to be the exception, but the norm. In our hustle and bustle lives, it's sometimes all too easy to get lost in work and life, but it's important to remember that our kids only get to be little once, and when that ends, there are no do-overs. I have never loved anything quite as much as I love my 2 girls, but it is the love I feel from them in return that drives me every day and makes me want to be the father I know I am capable of being, the one that I myself never had. Aww. Beautiful. That was a fun chapter, you guys. Right? I don't know, it felt like a fun chapter. It was sweet. Ooh. Yeah. And you woke up just as I'm finishing? Good timing, honey. Good timing. All right, so great chapter. As you can see, we are home. As long as the, everything goes well today, I will make slime today, which would be great. And that means that I can also send out more orders, which is also great because they need to go out. What else? That's pretty much the whole kit and caboodle, as it were. I'll keep you posted on the rest of the construction, because when the construction's over, we're going to do the birthday roll for slimes and the rest of the Disney blind box ones as well. So all that's still coming. All right, I'll see you guys on the flip side.